This is a little bit different video, and this is specifically for my builders. If you're out there, you are a builder, you create, you might be a coder, developer, or you're building your business reselling HighLevel, and you're a reseller. And I think there's a couple of questions that are largely unanswered, and I want to just have a real conversation with you. And so if you're new and a little bit of context about me, we've built multiple white label SaaSes as a resell of HighLevel. We've helped over 5,000 businesses generate over $100 million inside of the HighLevel ecosystem. So kind of had a crazy amount of impact over there. And then we've also built, known and unknown, multiple 7-figure complementary softwares inside of the HighLevel ecosystem. And so as a quick backstory, HighLevel launched as this all-in-one tool made for agencies. That was their market strategy. Their market entrance strategy was create a tool for the agency owners. The agency owners will implement it for the businesses, and the businesses will be using it, and they won't even know that they'll use it. This is a lot of decision-making protocol for a lot of businesses. If I hire an editor for video editing and they say they want to use some style of, this feedback tool for whatever it is for getting, comments on videos while you're going through the editing process, I'm going to say, sure, sounds good. I'll use whatever you use because you're the specialist. You have a preference. I don't. I'm going to lean towards your preference. The same thing happens in the agency world. A business needs help running ads, and they're saying, what we want to do is run an ad, get a phone number, and text that lead. The business is going to say, well, what do you use? I don't really care. And so HighLevel bridged the gap there and allowed the salespeople, the agencies, to capture more of the revenue there, because sometimes the business would use their services for a few months and then stop using the service provider, but keep using the tools. And so now you kind of have this amazing bridge there. But in light of the last few years, HighLevel's taken a lot of funding. They're VC backed, private equity backed. They got a lot of money, and they have a charge to go out there and be the undeniable biggest and best all-in-one tool, marketing solution in the space. And so really they set their sights on like a HubSpot or maybe a Salesforce. Like that's who they're coming for, is a, design for SMB initially, better fit of like a CRM, a marketing automation tool that could work and works well for all businesses. So what does this mean for us builders with that context? Why should we care about? Why are you even still listening here? And I'm reminded of the story. If I look at other VC-backed big businesses and what the space did for other builders. So you may or may not know the story of Sidecar. And so the story of Sidecar, in 2012, Sidecar launched a rideshare service, right? So you have Uber was already on the market. This happens often where it's like similar ideas. There's like a pain point. I don't know why or how this happens. It's not like people are sharing it, but it's like when you go to movies and you see like, oh, they're doing 5 zombie movies this year. We're all kind of slightly affected by the cultural, the pain points, the problems, the things that people care about. And so oftentimes entrepreneurs, visionaries, creators will kind of have similar ideas at a similar time. Not because we heard it from each other, we stole it from each other. It's just because the environment was ripe for that idea. And so, of course, multiple folks would sort of have a similar take at it. And so Sidecar popped up. They were after Uber, but it's interesting. They were before Lyft. And Sidecar is stuck in the history books as a alternative to Uber who couldn't hack it. They couldn't stay around. They could not make it in the space there. And as offering a very similar solution. But so in this builder space, in the HighLevel early days, we can look to see examples in other networks, perhaps like Shopify. Shopify is another ecosystem specifically for e-com, where they had plugin ecosystem where people would fill in the gaps of what Shopify couldn't do with a plugin. And for a season, this is great for some creators. They got known, they got popularized, they made revenue. But as Shopify got bigger, inevitably they had to start like answering the demand of their customers. Their customers were saying, why isn't XYZ feature native? Why isn't it included? They also had the unique perspective of seeing what these add-ons and plugins did. They could literally see the revenue, and they could see like, oh my gosh, this is the quantifiable positive impact. Like it's interesting when your customers say, I want a feature. It's very different when they say they're paying for a feature. That's like maybe they value it versus they definitely value it. They value it X amount. So if you have a feature set that you see your customers are spending millions of dollars on, you don't have to wonder how much that feature is worth. It's worth millions of dollars. The marketplace has spoken. It is worth that much. So coming back to this idea, you have Uber, VC-backed, big money. They're out there. They're set to scale. And they do things like operate at a loss. I don't know if you recall this. Uber operated at a loss for a long period of time because they had investors, because they wanted market share. They wanted to capitalize on this opportunity. And I'm not going to lie, there are things that HighLevel does where they are willing to operate at a loss to gain market share. They've got multiple ways where they can finance and subsidize the relationship, right? This cool model called blade revenue. They negotiate discounts on behalf of big providers like Twilio. And these are not real numbers. It's just hypothetical numbers where they can say, hey, Twilio, we do enough volume, give us a 20% discount. And then they come to us, the users, say, here's a 10% discount. They're actually beating Twilio in pricing, matching or beating, these providers in pricing. So of course I would use them, and they're still winning. So it's kind of a beautiful relationship. You're like, this is economies of scale. This is Costco. I go to Costco and I'm like, wow, what a great deal. This is a better deal than out there and what's in the market. I'm happy buying it. I feel like I got a ton of value. Costco's still making money. They're happy too. And so you have certain things like that happening, but then you also have the darker side, which is people's entire businesses get gobbled up. They get copied. We experienced that firsthand. We had ZappyChat, which was an AI chatbot interface. HighLevel did not. We launched this in 2020. They were so far from thinking of anything AI. And to be fair, AI was very baby. It wasn't great, or I'll say it's like not to the level of today in ease of use. So they knew it's like, man, it requires so much work to make it work, so much strategic guidance to get it to output the right answer, that from a developer perspective, they couldn't just build a tool and say, go and have success, because the tool needed really a lot of fine tuning and wielding. And so that's where ZappyChat filled the gap. We would craft those decisions. We would focus on making it easier for strategic marketers to deploy these things. But so we launched that, and a few years into it, what happens? HighLevel replicates all the good things that we had. They replicate as well, because they didn't have to wonder, what did people like and want? They liked and wanted what they were actively paying for. And so, what's the consequence of that? Well, at the very least, you get more objections as you're going, as you're building. At the worst, you start losing customers, because they start saying, why would I pay for you when maybe it's already included over here? Or maybe it's literally less because of subsidies, because of venture-backed, capital there. And so it's interesting in this perspective. I want to be clear. I feel like I kind of have a mature viewpoint at this juncture, and I feel like I've held it the entire time. I've known this is the ecosystem that we play in. I've known this. To be fair, it's because I already lived this once in Shopify. So this is not my first time being in a system that appreciates affiliates and referrals, loves that, grows in that way, appreciates add-on builders, loves that, grows in that way, takes on venture capital and money, just because that's a worthwhile thing to do. That is a great de-risking and empowering activity to have a crazy large, incredible impact. If you want to be $1 billion business, very hard to do that bootstrapped. But I've seen the natural consequences, right? The perverse incentives potentially that settle there. And it's nothing to do with the founders. I'll tell you, the founders of Shopify, the founder of Shopify did not want me to lose my affiliate commissions. You know who wanted me to lose my affiliate commissions at Shopify? It was the shareholders. The company goes public. You get all those shareholders to vote, and they say, hey, do you want to pay an affiliate who brought you a customer 5, 10 years ago? And everyone's like, collectively, no, right? It's kind of like the mass approach of like, voting to tax the rich. It generally passes. Why? Because the majority of the people are not affected by that measure. And so in this way, I was like, hey, do you want to stop? Like, if dear shareholders, this is what happened to me with Shopify. Should we stop paying these affiliates? And, collectively everyone said yes. And so the majority ruled, and I was in the minority. I was just an affiliate. So I say that to encourage you, because it's come back to that original story. Sidecar didn't make it, but Lyft made it. Lyft does great. I love their alternatives and options. Actually, as a company, we primarily use Lyft and not Uber, right? They found a way to differentiate, to compete, to specialize. And so what I mean by that is if you're a builder in the ecosystem, you kind of have two routes to go here. You acknowledge that this is a unique time and season, right? It's like to the folks who they had entire businesses spring up and around government initiatives. There was a tax credit that happened, or in certain seasons, there's certain tax credits, and there's entire businesses that just help businesses get that tax credit. That tax credit goes away. And so their entire business model kind of goes away. It is for a season. They're not doing it thinking that this is a business that they're going to hand off to their grandkids. They know this is an opportunity. I can solve a problem in this season. And I know that 1, 2, 5, 10 years from now, I'm going to be doing something different. That's totally fine, totally justified. And so I think that's one approach to do. If I'm a builder inside of HighLevel and I build plugins, I have to recognize that the odds are, or it's really this: if I build a popular enough plugin, they will copy it. Their customers will demand that they do. That just makes sense. And I can't fault them for being responsive to their customers, doing what they've always done. So, this is just a difficult reality. So you have to put on the hat of, I'm doing this in this season, filling in the gap of what is going on right now. This is not a business I will probably have 10 years from now. Or I look specifically and I'm going to specialize so that I continue, like I might have capped growth potential, not growing $1 billion business, but I will live into the future because I have specialized interests. And so Sean, one of the co-founders, has said this, if you go out there and you build a specialized integration, you're like, I am this for this particular niche. Odds are HighLevels, they're not going to build it. They're not going to go that specialized because they have to do wide appeal. However, if you're building something that has inherently wide appeal or is just filling in the gap of what doesn't exist inside of HighLevel now, if it becomes popular enough, if the customer base says, I like this, I want this, they will copy you. They will. And you'll wake up one day, your business will be kind of irrelevant. But that's not a bad game to play. I was reminded of another story. There was a gentleman early on. This is, I think, in high school. I bought a business off of Flippa. Flippa was this brokering site. And the business was arbitraging Fiverr. Think about this. This is 2007. The business was arbitraging a service on Fiverr. I bought the business, I think, for 50 or 60 or $100. It's crazy. It was like they sold the business, and it was really just like a website and a process to do this. To them, they're flipping these businesses all the time. They're running a season. They made $100. I, as the customer, I don't look back and regret that. I learned the idea of arbitraging Fiverr. I didn't end up doing a lot with it, but it was part of the educational process there. And so if you can kind of like divide and say, like, I'm working in the season, I'm going to make money for this moment. And the good that I'm going to bring is solving a problem today for someone who values having that problem solved today. And I'm okay knowing that I'm going to have to continue to find new problems to solve. I think that's brilliant. We can specialize. And so kind of to either one of those divides, I've seen people rise up and create great solutions under that specialization. So CloseBot is a great example of this. Zappchat, we sold it to CloseBot, and their model has always been a little bit more of a closed container system for AI booking bots. They are designed for folks that want the easiest turnkey solution to be like, I turn it on and it works. And that's what they've done. So HighLevel continues to be flexible. There's so much stuff that you can do there. And so in a sense, they're kind of competing more so with the secondary market of like snapshot builders or agencies are like in that space. But even depending on like what solution you provide, they are so specialized. I anticipate they will continue to exist and have great impact there because they've niched down into a zone that HighLevel is not necessarily going to follow because it's specialized. Right? There's trade-offs there. They know actually if they started to do feature limiting, like literally turning off the options there, people would be upset because they love that HighLevel's highly flexible. And so, like I said, this is a little bit of a different video. It feels like addressing an elephant in the room as we keep on going. We see them do even greater and more rapid releases. My encouragement would be to put yourself in one of those two camps, and then you will not feel discouraged when this inevitably happens. And so I don't say that to like avoid discouragement, but I'm just saying I've held this stance and this mindset the entire time, even as an affiliate of HighLevel. I love HighLevel. I affiliate HighLevel. I am not anticipating that those affiliate commissions are going to stay with me for the rest of my life. I know eventually there's a high chance that the controlling interest party, not the co-founders of HighLevel, the controlling interest party will vote and say, do we want to keep on paying Matt? And they're going to say, no, right? We want to vote for more money in our pockets. And I'll say, you know what? That was always the possibility. That was the game that I signed up for. I put that in the hat of like, this is working now for this season. This is not a forever thing. And so I kind of get to build in all sorts of these camps. I build some things that I know are going to be absorbed, taken on, and I'm just filling a gap in the season. And I also build some things that I highly specialize in because I want it to last 5, 10, 20 years. And so you don't have to do all of it. You can just do the things that bring you joy and that you get satisfaction and fulfillment out of. But I just want to address this, give you my insights, some of the things, going around in my head there. And I would love to know, like, what are your thoughts on this? Where your stance? Were there any ahas that this gave you? Let me know down in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next video.